Do not attempt anything said in this video. It is a personal retrospective of life accounts, not a how-to guide. Feel free to make fun of my teeth and hair in the comment section.
When I was a kid, I was living with my mom, who had not yet been diagnosed with bipolar disorder. After she was diagnosed, it didn't help. Things got stupider and stupider the longer I lived with her. It was basically like living with a Super Saiyan, just somebody who would stand there screaming until it was time to hit you. And with very little provocation, she would, do shit like drag me down the steps by my hair, or just throw shit at me. Just be a real salty fucking Sally about general existence of anyone, including herself. Then after her and my dad split up, I was forced to continue living with this gap-toothed succubus and her seemingly limitless string of abusive, barely literate ass dandruff boyfriends. When you're a kid and you're being abused, you can't really fight back in a traditional sense. Throwing fists at an adult when you're only 45 pounds just ain't gonna cut it, so you definitely have to get creative. So, here's a brief list of horrible things I used to do to my mother's abusive boyfriends. Number 5. Just break shit without getting caught. I held absolutely zero respect for my mother or any of her idiot boyfriends, or the shitholes we moved into. I once destroyed our entire bathroom piping. I had this stuff called squand, and what squand was sand that you would make little sculptures under the water with, but then the second you took it out, it would be dry ass sand.
Squirt it! Build it up high! Out of water, it's magically dry! Squand!
It was like fucking magic. I'm still baffled. But we realized that if you mix it with shampoo, it would get all gross and turn into this fucking gelatinous ball of nastiness. So we intentionally let it go down the drain. And man, they must use that shit for riot shields or something, because the second that it dried, it completely solidified the pipes. Like, no water getting in, nothing coming back out. It destroyed the pipes in our bathtub. And they never knew how it broke or why it broke. All they knew is that it cost my mother's boyfriend a shitload of money to have someone come out and repair these pipes. Money that he quickly borrowed from his father because he was fucking useless. Score 1 for me. Number 4. Steal his shit and just throw it away. Anything that seemed like it had any meaning, emotional value to him, anything that he really liked, I would just steal it and I would throw it in the woods by my house. Anything. Shit from shirts that he really liked to photos of his family. I would just take it and throw it in the fucking woods. I once threw one of his shoes away. And by the first day, it was like, where the hell is that other damn shoe? To like day 3, where it's like, alright, this is getting ridiculous. I do not want to buy another set of shoes. To day 7, where he's like, where is this fucking shoe? I once smashed up a really nice die-cast replica motorcycle set that he had just got, because at that point, I had still blamed him for us having no heat in the middle of fucking winter. It was partially his fault, partially my mother's. Listening through this, you could make the argument that I was just a shitty kid. But nope, this dude definitely laid his hands on me more than a few times. So, fuck him in the eye to death. I don't care, feel no remorse, no regrets. Score 1 for me. Number 3. Putting things in their food. If given the opportunity to fuck with their food, more times than not, I was doing something horrible to their food. For example, our houses were always fucking disgusting anyway, so you know the area next to your sink where you dry your dishes, and if you let it go for too long and you don't clean it for a long time, it starts to develop this nasty, crusty, filmy shit all around it? Yeah, you could scrape that stuff up and you can just put it wherever you want. And since it was easily accessible and in the kitchen, where most of the time food is made, that was a standard. That was a go-to for putting horrible shit in their food. But my absolute favorite was to not wash my hands for days, weeks sometimes. And eventually, after all the nasty shit builds up under your fingernails, take a steak knife and dig it all out. Collect it all. Get it out. And put it on a piece of paper, ball it up into a little thing, and then boom! Right into the raviolis with it. I could still not imagine the germs and bacteria that these idiots were chomping on. It's fucking gross, but I still have zero fucking regrets. My advice would be, do not abuse children. Number 2. Doing horrific things to their toothbrushes. Is there anything that should be more sacred and untouchable than someone's toothbrush? Normally, I would say no. But if you're living through an extremely abusive household, fuck them. I would occasionally save up some of those disgusting little fingernail balls that I was telling you about earlier and just kind of mush them into the bristles. Just mush them all up in there. But that was definitely never good enough for me. I quickly graduated to just flat out peeing on their toothbrushes. Still don't feel bad about it either. And you have to remember that we'd lived with some of these knuckle-dragging idiots for years. So imagine finding out right now, right this moment, that for the past 3 years, you'd been using a toothbrush that somebody had been regularly peeing on. Then imagine finding out you've been using one covered in poo too. Because I used to just get so upset. My mom or her boyfriends would just do something horrible, and I'd get so upset I would go into the bathroom and just scrub my butthole with it. Just fucking scrub it around. Scrub it like I was taking it for an appraisal. Scrub it like I was taking it back to the used butthole store and I definitely wanted my deposit back. Then, most mornings, I would just stand there and gleefully watch these idiots put their toothbrushes back in their mouths and scrape them all over their teeth, knowing what was all over those toothbrushes. Because like I said, when you're that little, when you're that young, and something horrible is happening to you, you can't just put up your dukes and fight an adult 30-something-year-old man. You gotta get creative. You gotta do something horrible. I've told these stories to people and they've said that that's fucked up and that's horrible and they'd beat my ass if they ever found out something like that. And to that I say, you didn't live through it, and if you would treat children like that, I hope someone poops in your mouth too. So once again, be careful who you're fucking with, because you never know that the child you're abusing might be a very young sociopath who wants nothing more than to just take a dump in your mouth. And number 1, I fucking stabbed one of them. That's right, I ended up stabbing one of them with a fork. It was early morning, maybe 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, somewhere around there, and they'd gotten into a huge fight. My mother and her boyfriend got into a huge fucking screaming match, as was pretty usual. But at some point, it escalated into she was hitting him, and he was fucking trying to fend her off. And eventually, he grabbed her, and he started choking her. Started choking her in the kitchen. Now, I still, to this day, wouldn't mind choking my mother. She was a terrible, terrible person. But at that moment, your very young brain kicks in and it says, someone is choking your mother, you should try to stop him. My breakfast was sitting in front of me. It was eggs or some shit, and I just grabbed the fork and I ran up behind him and I fucking stabbed him as hard as I could. Now, as hard as I could back then was not worth much, but it was worth enough to have a fork stuck in the back of this idiot and him going like this, trying to get the fucking fork out for a few minutes. And for any youngsters who might be watching this, don't get any ideas, man. Just the fact of this was real abuse. I know some people have mouthed off and hit their parents, boyfriends, and for a lot less shit than what I was going through. Shit like, oh, he wouldn't let me go here, he wouldn't let me do this, he wouldn't increase my allowance. Yeah, shut the fuck up. I'm talking about physical abuse, talking about emotional abuse, real shit. So there we go. There's a top 5 of one of the many horrible things I used to do to my mother's boyfriends. More videos to come about my mom and other stupid fucking stories from this goddamn life I live. Welcome to Tales of a Failed Life.